All right, we are live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So today we got a lot to talk about in our live stream, okay? The first thing I want to talk about is a major mistake that you have to avoid if you're trying to actually become a blockchain master, which is exactly what I teach you how to do on this channel. We're going to look at a lot of the news updates that have happened in this space since yesterday, since our last live stream. Again, we do these live streams Monday through Friday on this channel. Just turn notifications, subscribe. You're going to find out that's when we go live. This is a great time to get your questions answered. So it's a perfect time to show up if you want me to answer any of your burning questions that you have. I actually put a poll out on my Twitter this morning, or a call, I should say. If you want to ask, talk about anything specific on the live stream, hit me up on Twitter. We just did that, so we got some stuff we're going to discuss on that. We're going to look at the crypto markets and a whole lot more. So, if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to master blockchain step by step, start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. All right, so we got people jumping in the chat here. We got Culture Highs, Robert, Automatic Beats, Eileen, Data CPA, Lee, Machiavelli, Rodrigo, Cryptofi, Quinn, hope I'm saying that right, Anshul, Eric, Jose, welcome. All right, so let's jump into this. Let's look at the first thing we talk about today. Among many things, again, we're going to answer some of your questions that you all posted on Twitter here a second ago. But the first thing I want to talk about is something that I saw come across Reddit today. That is a really common question that I think a lot of you are asking and trying to figure out. And so I want to address it on our live stream as the first item of business here. So let's see if this actually comes up. Okay, my camera actually works. That's good. Sometimes when I click over my camera, it just doesn't even show up properly on my screen. So I'm glad that was working. All right, so here's a great question. How does one go from being good to pro? So I actually saw this in the Reddit subreddit for Ethereum development. And so here's a question. If there's one thing I've noticed is that no matter which Solidity tutorial you take online, sorry, I'll scoot this over so you can see it better. No matter what Solidity tutorial you take online, no matter which video you use to help you write some code, everything looks so simple. I can go look up how to make a voting contract and program a simple one that looks good in retrospect. But when you go see a voting contract for one of the top DeFi exchanges, such as Compound's Governor Bravo, and it looks way more complex and sophisticated, miles ahead of any tutorial can show you how to make a voting contract. I'm really just curious to know, how does one go from being able to make basic voting contract, be able to whip up something highly complex like Governor Bravo? It's just a matter of is it just a matter of being a really good programmer in general, having a CS background, years of experience? Okay. So, actually want to answer this question because it's a question a lot of people have, and there's a mistake inside of here. There's a big mistake inside of here that a lot of people make on their programming trajectory that actually keeps them from really ever getting started or getting that level of becoming pro like this post is talking about. So I'll outline that mistake in detail because it's critical to understand. So the first one is basically, do you have to have a CS background to, learn to write smart contracts like these big production level applications like Compound Finance? Absolutely not. Is it a matter of being a really good programmer in general? Well, kind of. And, having years of experience? Well, kind of. But how do you get those things? And that's the real question behind this, okay? So first of all, let's talk about this. Okay, so, most tutorials out there are probably not going to elevate you to that level of, learning how to create something as complex and sophisticated as something like Compound Finance, okay? But that's okay. I'm going to talk about the path to actually getting there to where you could create something like Compound Finance if you wanted to yourself, okay? So let's detail that in depth, okay? So basically, how do you get to that point? Well, it's reverse engineer it. So, most people are going to need a significant amount of experience to get to the point where they could create something like a production level app like Uniswap or Aave or Compound, all right, where they can actually write all the code. Because here's why. Most tutorials are designed to teach you the skills, and they create something that is only designed to cover a certain set of requirements, constraints, and use cases, okay? When you're talking about moving to the level of something like compound finance, where you're actually handling, millions and millions and millions of dollars deposit with withdrawals from a variety of different parameters and protect against attackers, all that type of stuff, you start adding a significant amount of complexity to the software itself. And so part of it is you start to, that's when it becomes more important to do things like, cover every possible edge case for what could happen with that software. Try to make your contracts as gas efficient as possible. All right, you're talking about lots of really smart people coming together to create something like that. Usually not just one person who's writing this thing from scratch. Now, there will be people, but part of it is that complexity comes from lots of experienced people all working together. Now, how do you get to the point where you could be one of those experienced people that's contributing to that? So, again, you're probably not just going to get it from doing a tutorial, because it's really hard to hold your hand to get to that point. Because at the end of the day, you have to develop the skill of thinking for yourself. And this is where a lot of people get stuck in what I call tutorial hell. Okay, and this is the real, this is the barrier that most people get stuck in from getting out of this level. Okay, so tutorial hell is basically you spend a lot of your time watching tutorial after tutorial, and tutorials are great. Of course, I make a lot of them on this channel. They're the starting point. They're not the finish line. And a lot of people get stuck on this plateau where they're following tutorials and they're like copying the code and then like just going along step by step, but they actually need to get that next level of being able to create something for themselves, okay? And so how do you do that? Well, basically, that's when it comes time to start thinking about things that the tutorial itself can't do and then writing the code to do it. That's the easiest place to start. Rather than just creating an app completely from scratch, is basically thinking like, take a tutorial and say, well, it doesn't do this yet, and now I'm going to create the features inside the same app that I've already been doing, using sort of the tips and tricks that I learned along the way to make it do something else. Like, so let's say you took the tutorial, I don't know what it is, like the game tutorial we did next week. What if you could add more characters to it? What if you add, more levels or something like that? Like, that'd be an easy way to do it, or a new feature to the NFTs. So that's a way to start doing what all programmers do, is solving problems inside their head and then expressing the solution to those problems with code. That's the essential skill that you need. Now, let's talk about how to get to that point where you could do what this person's asking in the question, which is how do you get to the point where you could, build something like compound finance or Aave or Uniswap, from scratch, build contracts that are of that level of, complexity. So at the end of the day, it really is about refining your craft. And how do you refine your craft to where you can get to that level with experience, okay? So part of it is this, like, there's hardly anybody out there on the face of the earth, and probably really nobody, who just like steps into programming and is just like a genius and is going to just watch a tutorial and be like, oh, I can figure out how to create, compound finance. I mean, there will be some highly intelligent people who could cut the learning curve and do that in a much smaller amount of time. But I'm gonna tell you the truth. Like, I've seen some insanely smart people get into programming and then just quit because they face resistance, okay? And this is actually pretty common with a lot of smart people who don't have a lot of follow through, is that they think everything should come easy to them. And when programming doesn't come easy to them, they just get frustrated and give up. So like, the real endurance game with programming is just sticking with it until stuff starts to make sense. Some people, it'll make sense faster than others. It doesn't really matter as long as you're headed in the right direction over the long term and you would like what you're doing and it could give you a life-changing opportunity. No, it doesn't really matter, okay? So I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about where you fall on that trajectory, right? So anyways, how do you get to that level? So there's a couple different ways. I'll tell you the most common way. The most common way is just getting your foot in the door, getting some experience, and then learning in context of somebody else who is much better than you, who can give you really quick feedback on what, how to do that. So you see this all the time. It's sort of like apprenticeship. Now, you won't necessarily always be in a situation where you have like one top-down mentor who is like, watching everything that you're doing and like you're sitting by their side and they're like, holding your hand through things. You can sort of crowdsource that apprentice kind of model with a team, okay? So that just looks like being thrown into real world places where you have to use whatever skills you have to solve problems. And then if you're surrounded by a team who's better than you, they can kind of suck you up to their level. If you can ask constructive questions when you get stuck, like on a team chat or something like that, that's how most people are going to get to that level where they could build something like Uniswap or Compound over time. Now, here's the other thing I'll say about this is a lot of people have a misconception inside their head that they have to be able to build something like Compound Finance or Uniswap from scratch in order to get a good blockchain job. It's absolutely not even true. Like, you don't even need a fraction of that knowledge to get your foot in the door somewhere. And that's a big misconception. That's also another mistake. It wasn't the primary mistake that I want to talk about in this video, but it's not what you're really what you have to understand in order to, become productive in the workplace. Really, the key is to get your foot in the door somewhere and then get the experience where you could create something like that over time. Okay. Again, trust me, I've seen this from multiple angles. People with a fraction of that experience getting hired just because the demand is so insane for blockchain talent. Okay. So let me know what y'all think down in the comment section below. Yeah, someone says, trying to break out tutorial hell, starting to make my own thing. Yes, that is the best way to do it. That is the answer of how you get outside tutorial hell. But really, you just want to be outside tutorial hell, be able to create your own thing from scratch. It doesn't have to be as sophisticated as Compound Finance or Aave or Uniswap in order to get hired, okay? That's how you get that experience is getting in typically inside the workplace. Now, I'll add the caveat that you actually can acquire that experience outside the workplace. Just for most people, it's going to be harder, okay? You can still replicate that experience of, being on a team and getting feedback on what you're doing without getting a job. And some people just never want to get a job and want to go out and build their own thing. It's a viable path too. It's a hard road, okay? But how you would do that outside the workplace essentially would be figuring out exactly what you want to build, knowing what it is, and then just start trying it, all right? And then getting stuck. And then you could reach out to Discord groups, you could reach out to Discord communities, show your work, show people what you're doing. Especially if you're trying to integrate with other protocols, there'll be people who give you feedback and help you based on that type of stuff. It's going to be harder, okay? And that's not most people's goal. And so that's why I don't want to, spend too much time on that point. Most people's goal is to, get the skills so they could be productive in the workplace and get their foot in the door somewhere. Maybe become a freelancer, right? That's how you're going to accelerate that process a lot faster. But you definitely can do it on your own. But the whole idea is that you want to be inside of a community, of at least a virtual community that can give you that feedback and help you pull those skills up, okay? That's what's happening in the workplace. It's just a way to sort of simulate it outside of it. Okay, so because if you're really good at learning and teaching yourself things, you can definitely do it. It's just going to take a long time. All right, so let's look at a couple other things that have happened. Again, we got a lot of questions on Twitter today. Let me just pull those up here. So let's see here. We got questions on Twitter. So basically, let me just pull some of those up here. So somebody asked my question about unstoppable domains. So basically that's a service where you can get .crypto domains and stuff like that, that resolve to a blockchain wallet. I think it's cool. I've got an unstoppable domain myself. It's really similar to ENS, but they support multiple networks, .crypto domains. Somebody asked about insurance on the blockchain. That's a good question. So insurance is an interesting topic for blockchain for sure. We talk about the idea of even let's say property insurance. How could you basically put cryptocurrency into a smart contract where, if you had some disastrous event happen and you had damage to your house, then how could you basically, how could you prove that and not automatically disperse funds for that insurance settlement? There's a lot of unsolved problems there to make that an airtight solution. It'll probably never be an airtight solution, but how could you, potentially head in that direction? Well, you definitely need some way to get outside information provided to the blockchain in a trustworthy manner. That would mostly look like coming from some type of oracle. So an oracle is basically a source of truth outside of the blockchain itself that can provide real-world information to blockchain. That's what Chainlink is. Okay, it's a decentralized oracle network. One of the most common uses for oracles right now is like cryptocurrency prices. Okay, but you could extend that to like what's the weather, right? You could extend that to like lots of other stuff. So if there's a a volcano in an area and it's confirmed from multiple data points that your house is covered in lava, then there could be a way to automate that. Now there's it gets pretty deep pretty fast, but that's kind of the general trajectory that you could possibly take it. We're not ready for that on a grand scale, but there is potential. One of the easiest ways to implement insurance now is DeFi insurance. So basically, if there's an exploit, you know what I mean? And then like you could cover, it's like deposit insurance. Like think about FDIC if you live in the United States, where basically like they insure your bank account up to a certain limit. And if like, you have cash in there that's stolen, then it's insured basically. Same type of thing is possible with DeFi. Like it's pretty easy to verify on chain that an exploit happened, and then they could they could reimburse you for that, or you could claim a reimbursement. All right, so let's look at a couple other things here. So we're seeing more updates about what's going on with let's see here. So we're seeing more updates on the Web 3.0 side of things, but potentially, right, with what's happening with Twitter. This has been quite an entertaining ride. So we've been following this a lot in the live streams. You haven't been tuning in. So this is not directly related to Web 3.0 necessarily, but it does have some potential impact on Web 3.0. We've seen basically Elon Musk talking about buying Twitter, taking the company private. And we've seen a pretty long, epic, drawn-out saga with this, okay? Where basically, we saw about maybe a month ago, something like that, Elon posted a poll on his Twitter saying like, hey, should the Twitter algorithm be open source? And that's when we started talking about like, hey, what's Elon doing here? Is there any potential for like Twitter to become the Web 3.0 social media platform where we actually, start to value things like transparency in social media and create some sort of competitive edge that way? That was kind of the beginning of it. And then, we talk about Elon talking about buying, shares in Twitter, join the board, push back on that. Now Elon's talking about just buying it outright, taking it private. And now he says, now we got this update. So Musk is no longer Twitter's largest shareholder, and he's not sure his takeover bill will be successful. So Elon Musk, who has a 9.2% stake in Twitter, is no longer the largest shareholder. So Vanguard Group said its fund now owns 10.3% stake, according to a recent SEC filing. So basically, he's saying he's not sure if his $43 billion bid for Twitter will be successful. All right. So my view on this is that, what Elon's doing here, there's a range of possible outcomes. And, most likely he's sort of focused on one of the potential outcomes for this as sort of the final solution, right? It's one of those things where we see Musk kind of do this stuff a lot in public, where he does one thing and everybody focuses on his actual actions, but then there's something else that's a different motivation that is sort of the desired outcome, or maybe a range of possibilities, and a lot of those range of possibilities are desired outcomes, and he kind of knows how to deal with each of those potential scenarios, even the the downsides as well. Sort of the idea of risk reward. You do something and like, here's the good stuff that can happen. Here's the bad stuff that can happen. How do I deal with each of those possible scenarios? Well, the upside on the best possible scenarios are what I'm sort of betting for here. Okay, so I don't know exactly what it is, right? We've seen some speculations on this. I put a tweet on my Twitter yesterday talking about, if Twitter rejects Elon's offer, does he just build his own, Web 3.0 social media platform? I don't really think that's probably going to happen, right? It was just a little speculative thing here, but that's what I was saying is, like, I feel like there's a bigger planned outcome here. I'm not sure exactly what it is. And it's hard to know if he knows exactly what it is or if there's just possibilities. And, he's preparing for a range of possibilities. We definitely saw Mark Cuban weigh in on this. He's got some colorful language in there, so I'll keep that, off camera here. Try to keep the show family friendly. But basically, my conclusion is that Elon Musk is, messing with the SEC. His filing with the SEC allows him to say he wants to take the company private at $54.20, $4.20 basically, versus am considering taking Tesla private at $4.20, funding secured, which he said before. So price goes up, his shares goes up, profit, goes up. SEC's like, WTF just happened. So we'll see if that's a possible outcome here. So let's see here. What do y'all think down in the comment section below? Somebody says, I think he is nuts. All right, so really quickly, before we wrap up a little bit early here today, let's take a quick peek at the crypto markets, particularly what's going on with the Bitcoin price. So again, we're still below a lot of our moving averages that a lot of people want to see before we get too bullish on the Bitcoin trajectory of things. Okay, currently about $40,000. We're currently below the 200-day moving average, 50-day moving average, bull market support band, red weekly candle. Although we are seeing some, basically, some support here. Kind of coming through this range. I'm trying to draw a line here. My mouse is a little messed up, but we'll see if Bitcoin holds here. All right. Now, one thing that's going to be interesting is we'll find out if the tax selling thing is true. Okay. So lots of people have been saying this week, people have been selling for taxes. There's a lot of perspectives on that. So people say no, tax selling is at the end of the previous year because that's when the IRS cares about it. So people say, well, they leave their money in until middle of April and then start selling it to pay their taxes. And some people say it doesn't even matter because you can get an extension anyway till October. We'll see. We're gonna find out if we get some rebound here, if there's any merit to the tax thesis. All right, so. My outlook is still long-term bullish. Short-term, it's anybody's guess is what's going to happen. I still don't think that we're going to go like horribly south in terms of some crazy bear market. Still don't think it's going to happen. Yeah, totally. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. All right, everybody, that's all I got for today. as always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. That really helps these videos out so the more people can learn about blockchain. And if you're as fast and have this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? Well, you can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. And if you like those and you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master shortcut entirely, I can show you become a blockchain master step-by-step from start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. Until next time, thanks.